Hi, this is Adolph Oliver, and this is the video clip about formulas that can be solved as quadratics. Some formulas that we come across have squared terms in them, and of course a squared term indicates you've got a quadratic. Let's look at some examples. Here's one that has to do with people shaking hands. The number of possible handshakes, H, within a group of n people is given by the following formula here. H equals 0.5 times, in parens, n squared minus n. Now remember, n is the number of people and h is the number of handshakes. Well, in this particular problem, they tell us there are a total of 66 handshakes. So how many people are in the group? Well, let's take a look at how we can solve this. Okay, remember, h is 66, so I've got 66 equals 0.5, and in parens, n squared minus n. Well, one of the best things to do here, you see this 0.5 times the guy in parens? That's going to cause us trouble as we go on. So let's do something we can always do in any equation. Multiply both sides, each and every term, by whatever number, but as long as we hit each and every term, it'll maintain its balance. So what I'm going to do is multiply both sides here by 2. Now, why am I doing 2? Well, what's half of 2? 0.5 times 2 is 1. And so if I do this, I end up with 1 times n squared minus n. And over here, well, let's see, 66 times 2, I think, is 132. Okay, well now, much easier to solve. Well, 1 times n squared minus n, it's just n squared minus n. I like to have the variables on the left, so what I'm going to do here is interchange the sides and write this as n squared minus n equals, now see, 1 times n squared is n squared, 1 times negative n is negative n, and I'm interchanging the sides so I don't change the signs, and that means the 132 goes over here as positive 132. Well, okay, let's move everybody to the left, because remember, this is a quadratic. We got an n squared here. So n squared minus n, take the 132 and move it over, it comes over as negative 132 equals 0. Well, here's the required 0 on the right that we need, so we can play the 0 game to get the roots when we're done. Well, this is a nice little reverse FOIL. We got a plus 1 in front of the n squared. So what I want are two numbers that multiply together to give me 132. The minus sign in front here means I want the difference to be the coefficient in front of the center term, which is just a 1. Okay, well, what are two numbers multiplied together? Give us 132. Well, how about 12 times 11? I think will do it. Let's check and see. 12 times 11, let's see, that'd be 120, 12, 132. That's good. And remember now, we're factoring this as a nice little reverse FOIL. So that means that I'm going to have n. The minus here tells me that I'm going to have signs, one of each. So I'll put, say, n plus here and n minus over here. And of course, this equals a 0. Now, remember, what we do to get the numbers in the correct place, since the signs are one of each, and of course, remember this minus here reminded me that the signs had to be one of each. I played a bigger game. 12 is bigger than 11, and that 12 has to have the sign of the center term, which is negative, so that 12 goes behind the minus wherever I put it, and the 11 goes in the other spot. Okay, well now, here we go. What are the roots? Well, I get negative 11 right here, and I get positive 12 on this guy. Now, you're certainly not going to have negative 11 people shaking hands, so you know that this one can't be it. So there it is. How many people are shaking hands? It turns out that are in here for this particular problem is a total of 12 people. Okay, well, using formulas like this, all you have to do is make sure that you get the correct values in the correct spot. Let's look at another example here. Here's another one coming up. And let's see what we got here. An object is thrown upward from the top of a 200-foot tall building. The height h in feet of the object t seconds after it is thrown is given by. Well, here's the height, h. Negative 16t squared is the pull of gravity that, starts pulling it back down. Plus 120t, this is the force with which it was thrown up in the air. And the 200 was the elevation it started at from the top of the 200-foot tall building. Well, okay, when will the object be 376 feet high? Well, that's the h right here. So I'm going to put in the 376 equals negative 16t squared plus 120t plus 200. Okay, well, this is a quadratic again. We see we had a squared term. So if I interchange the sides, it'd come over as negative 16t squared. I don't want that. I want to make it positive. So here's a case where instead of interchanging the sides, we're going to jump each of the terms over to the other side, and that will then give me a positive 16t squared. So here we go. Jump the 16t squared over. Minus becomes positive since we're jumping them one at a time and not interchanging the sides. And again, why did I do that? So that when I jumped it over, this became a plus 16t squared, and that's going to make my factoring a lot easier here when I go to solve the quadratic. Okay, the plus 120t goes over as negative 120t. The plus 200 goes over as negative 200. And remember, we had plus 376 on the left side already. And of course, now we've got the 0 that we want to have, so we can then find the roots when we factor this. Okay, well, we got to combine these two terms right here. So I've got 16t squared minus 120t. 376 minus 200 is going to be positive 176 equals 0. Well, this is not an AC product, or excuse me, it's not a nice reverse FOIL. It is an AC product because we don't have a nice 1 in front of our squared term. But the other thing we can do is try and simplify the numbers. I'm looking at this, and it looks like all of these guys are divisible by 4. So if I divide everybody by 4, each and every term all the way through, I'll get an equivalent equation, same answer, but it'll have smaller numbers. 16 divided by 4 gives me 4t squared. 120 divided by 4 gives me, I think it's 30, huh? Let's see, the 176, 4 goes into 17 4 times. That leaves a 1, so 6. Looks like it's 44 equals 0. Oh, look at this. The numbers here are still even. I could have divided by an 8, but I didn't see that. But no harm done here. Divide by 2 now, because we want to make these guys as small as we can, so let's do that. Okay, 4 divided by 2 is 2t squared. 30 is negative 15t. And 44 divided by 2 is 22 equals 0. Okay, center term is odd, so we can't divide by a 2 again. But we've certainly done a nice job making the numbers smaller, which will make getting the solution a lot easier. So, if you see you can divide through by something, do that. And if it turns out there's still something left, do it again. Okay, now here we go. This is an AC product. So we got 2 times 22, which gives me 44. Okay, this is what we want to play the 2-number game with. I want 2 numbers multiplied together give me 44. The plus here reminds me whose sum is also going to be 15. Well, 44 looks like 11 times 4 would work. And in fact, guess what? The sum of 11 4 is 15, so this is correct. Now, remember, this is an AC product, so we don't get the answer direct. We have to split the center term. Here it is. The plus on the end here means the choices for my signs are double minus or double plus, and the minus on the center term means we take the double minus choice. So minus 11t and minus 4t. Now notice these combine together to be negative 15, but remember, this is also the correct rainbows for this. That's how this AC product works. Bring down the last guy exactly like he is. Bring down the first guy exactly like he is. And now what we do is we finish up factoring this doing by grouping 2 and 2 here. Well, the first two, the only thing that's common is a t, so I can factor that out and I get 2t minus 11. Now, let's see, I can factor a 2 out of these last two guys, but the question is, do we factor the plus version or the minus version? Well, compare the signs. First to first, plus to minus, that's opposite. Compare the second, minus to plus, that's opposite. So that means we're going to factor out the minus version of the 2. And when we do that, we get 2t minus 11. Remember, this should always work for us here. If we haven't made any mistakes up above, factor by grouping is guaranteed to work here with the AC product. Well, okay, we're not done. We got the common 2t minus 11. Here we go. The leftovers in are t minus 2, and this equals the 0, of course, that we had. Okay, what are the roots? Well, the second guy is the easiest to see. Okay, t equals 2. Remember how to get this guy? You take the opposite of the number. Opposite of negative 11 is positive 11, and divide by the coefficient. So this is 11 halves, or what it would be. Let's see, that's 5.5, isn't it? Okay, so here it is. There are actually 2 times that the object we're throwing upward in the air will be at 376 feet. Remember, we've got our building here, and you throw it up in the air, and then it finally comes back down again, and 376 feet will be hit twice. Once in the way going up at 2 seconds, and then as it's coming back down at 5.5 seconds. So problems like this, it's not uncommon that you get 2 answers, and both of them indeed are correct. One of them is the time it's going up. The other one is when it's coming down. Okay, well, let's look at one more example of formulas here, but you can see that we identify it as a quadratic and use the quadratic methods we know. In a sports league of X teams where all teams play each other twice, that's commonly what, soccer leagues or basketball leagues do. The total number n of games played is given by n equals x squared minus x. Okay, well, n is the total number of games, and they're saying, well, if a total of 240 games are played in the league, how many teams are there? Well, let's plug the 240 in for the n, and then we have x squared minus x. Okay, well, this is a quadratic again. We got a squared term. That's how you know it. Notice I got a plus in front of this x squared. So if I jumped it over by itself, it becomes negative. I don't want that. So I'm going to interchange the signs. X squared minus x equals 240. Okay, now Let's jump the 240 over because I want a 0 on the right. So I get x squared minus x equals, not equals, minus 240 equals 0. Okay, there we go. Now, here's the question. Okay, how do we turn around and figure out two numbers? Notice we got a nice reverse FOIL. There's a +1 here. So what I want here are two numbers that give me 240. The minus here reminds me I want the difference to be just 1. Well, that means the two numbers are about the same. Let me remind you of a nice little trick here to kind of tell you what to think about. If the two numbers are just about the same, they're only 1 apart, take this 240 and get your calculator out and take the square root of it. That will give you two numbers multiplied together that are exactly the same. They're 240. And if you do this, you get 15.5. Okay. Now, that being the case, you know, the number of teams can't be a decimal. It's got to be an integer. And you want two numbers that are 1 apart, so just go to the next number higher than this, which is 16, and the next number lower is 15. And I think these are the two guys you want right here. Let's check it and see. What's 16 times 15? Well, 6 times 5 is 30, carry your 3. 5 and 3 is 8. And then 1, 6, yes indeed, that's 240. So, here we are. Our two numbers are 16 and 15. We use this trick. This works again whenever you have somebody big and you want two numbers multiplied together to give it whose difference is small, like 1, 2, or 3. Remember this square root technique. Tells you where to look, and you start trying numbers right around this guy. Well, okay. The signs here, since this is a minus, are 1 of each. So that means this is going to factor into x plus and x minus. Okay, put the plus and minus wherever you want, because we're now going to play the bigger game to get them in the right place. 16 is bigger than 15, and the bigger guy has to have the sign of the center term, which is minus. So that means the 16 goes behind the minus wherever I put it, and the 15 goes in the other place. Okay, well, we've got this one factored. All we have to do is come up with the roots. Negative 15 is a root from this guy. This guy here is positive 16. Well, you can't have negative 15 teams in a league, so you know that that's incorrect. So the correct answer here, plus 16 teams. Okay, well, we've demonstrated here that so many times you'll get a formula, and if that formula has a squared term in, it's a quadratic, but you know the methods now to be able to solve this. So here we are.